Hello and welcome to the Symphony of Us. Let me start this very Cov show with a very Cov opening as I say something awfully Cov-like. Hello, I'm Paul and I'm going to enjoy myself first. The specials. I just wanted to start by getting the obligatory specials reference out of the gates nice and early. I'm Paul O'Donnell, and I'm the writer behind this very, very high art that you are about to experience. This right here is Andrea Daly. Andrea is born and bred Cov. And in case you haven't already worked out, Andrea here is our BSL interpreter. This is the clue. It's important to note that through this show, she will be flapping her hands about like this. She will, however, be flapping her hands about with meaning, hopefully. This guy here is the Daniel Fardon. Daniel here is the conductor, he is the composer, and he was born in Cov. He's a triple threat. Like Andrea, Daniel here will also be flapping his hands about throughout this show, like this. He will, however, be doing it for very different reasons than Andrea Orchestra. Coventry Cathedral. Please put your hands together for these sensational hand flappers of Symphony of Us. As for me, I am a 30-year-old fella born and bred here in Coventry. I've lived here all of my life, so I guess I am 100% Cov. And it is 100% called a batch. I've said it in a cathedral now, it's official. All four of my grandparents, however, were born in Donegal, Ireland. And, we've got some fans in today. And ventured over here in the 1950s for work. Somehow I find myself being 100% Cov while simultaneously being 100% Donegal. I am an imperfectly, perfectly flawed individual. Now, Andrea, I do hate to boast, but I am also an artiste. A very good one too, Andrea. From the current UK cité of culture. So I do know a thing or two when it comes to high art, such as this. Up until Thursday, though, this week, that's all that I was, just an ordinary artiste. Like so many other ordinary artists out there. But now I am an ordinary artiste with an orchestra. Orchestra of the Swan, everyone. Now back to me. Pre-COVID/Brexit, to get away from all the stresses of, creating high-quality, high art, I would often book myself extravagant excursions to a European city of my choosing on a £9.99 Ryanair flight. Anyway, in 2016, I chose Cologne in Germany. And on my very first day there, I stepped out of my hotel and walked the streets to the Grand Cathedral of Cologne. To my joyous surprise, I found that evening the cathedral just so happened to be hosting the Eurovision Young Musicians Finale. Naturally, I assumed that this meant high camp dance routines to songs like Making Your Mind Up with perfectly timed skirt tearaways. Sadly, Andrea, that was not the case. Thanks, Dave. The Eurovision Young Musicians finale actually happened to be a bunch of crazily talented young musicians leading an orchestra whilst playing the violin or the cello or the peculiar Hungarian instrument I can't quite remember the name of. Anyway, in that moment, it was the first time that I'd ever experienced a classical orchestra play live. And although it was not the Eurovision experience I was anticipating, it felt magical. It felt so personal. It felt as though that orchestra was there just for me, for Paul Anthony James O'Donnell. As if Germany has thrown all of this out as if to say, Guten Tag, willkommen, Paul. As if the goosebumps on my arms were telling me that I was worthy of this grand spectacle. As if the Eurovision franchise was finally giving me the orchestra I so deserved. Tonight I wanted to capture a little bit of that. Tonight, I wanted to use this moment to sing the praises of this people, of the people of this city, right here and now. The people of this city who usually have to blow their own trumpets because nobody else will. For tonight, at least, we've got Angela here to do it for us. Beautiful as always, Angela. I am aware that there may be some people in today who might never have experienced a classical orchestra before. Guten Tag, welcome into you. Symphony of Us, while it is a little bit different to the traditional concerto de musica classica. Sì, italiano. Per il Symphony de Us, relaxamo. If ever you feel like you want to clap, do it. You guys, if ever you need to get up to stretch your legs or you want to pop to the toilet, don't hold it in. Do it. If ever you have the impulse to parle italiano, sì, fallo. The most important rule, though, tonight, and the reason why you've bought yourself a ticket, is that you are here in your own very special way to enjoy yourself. Enjoy yourself. It's later than you think. So without much further ado, I'm incredibly proud to present for your entertainment, Il Symphony de Us. In Cologne, I remember that magical feeling as I stood in the grounds of the cathedral, experiencing that beautiful collaborative sound, being blown away by the synchronicity of 30 or so people moving harmoniously together. In that moment, in that crowd of hundreds, I somehow felt just that little bit more special. For the time that it lasted, I had an orchestra there for me. Coventry right now is the same Coventry it has always been. But for this year at least, it is a little bit more special. I, of course, hope that when the orchestra packs up the instruments at the end of this show, and when our title vanishes into history, we hold on to remembering just how special we always were. Over the past 6 months, I have been working with 6 people of this city. Just 6 ordinary people of this city. And tonight, they are still just 6 ordinary people of this city. But they are 6 ordinary people of this city with an orchestra. So please, welcome to the stage the stars of this spectacle, the people section. Aziz, yes please. Moz Baker, he ain't no faker. Duncan Brightside, take a walk on the wild side. Sam Collinge, eating an orange. Lynette Coulston, who's really hard to rhyme with, I'm sorry. And Roze Navab. She's all right, Fab. We are the people section. And so, as we often say in the traditional concerto musica de classica, hit it.
Hello, I'm Duncan Brightside, and I'm a primary school teacher. Quite literally, I'm Mr. Brightside. I've spent most of my adult life trying to help young people from around the region feel comfortable in who they are. And I've competed in Coventry Districtly for 3 years now.
And boy, can he shake those slippery salsa hips.
Hello, I'm Noor. I'm not a dancer. I am, however, a gardener in my own time. I absolutely love my garden. I love to learn from it. I also love all 6 of my children in their own special ways, as I think they are all individual flowers with their own unique way of blooming. I love my religion and treasure visits to Mecca every 5 years.
Hello, I'm Moz, and I like nothing more than a pint of real ale in the pub. I love my weekly trips to see Coventry City Football Club play. I was born here, in Hill Fields, and I am City till I die. I'm City till I die. I know I am. I'm sure I am. I'm City till I die. It's true. I'll live and die. I'll live and die. I'll live and die in this town. And when it comes to Coventry, well, what my heart yearns for now is love and pride.
Yes, thanks, Moz. I think we've covered all of the obligatory music references now.
Paul, please, just one more, if that's okay. Wait for it. Oh, the old girl.
Fantastic.
Hi, I'm Sam, and I confess that originally I wasn't born a Cov kid. I am, in fact, a Brummie. But I feel that I am an honorary Coventrian because I've worked as a midwife for over 30 years in the city, most of them at UHCW. My career was forged here in the city, but I actually live down the road in Stratford. My mum, Maureen, hi Mum, on the front row there, she followed me down from Birmingham a few years later. And my two children, Eleanor and Harry, also on the front row over there, were born at the old Walsgrave Hospital. They think they're dead posh because they now live in Stratford. But whether you like it or not, kids, let's face it, you're city till you die.
Talking of Cov kids, this here is Roze with a Z. When I met Roze with a Z for the first time on Zoom with a Z, she said,
"A show in the cathedral about me? I mean, I don't know what to say. My life's been utterly boring."
Coventry Cathedral. Do look forward to all of Rose's bits. Lynette, ladies and gents.
I'm Lynette Coulston. I was born in Guyana, but I can talk for England.
This is how Lynette introduces herself to new people, a sort of preface for what is to come.
I'm one of the newbies here, coming to Coventry for the first time in about 1955. I'm now 88. I know, don't look it, do I?
She'll then go on to say...
Now, to cut a long story short,
then go on to tell you the longest story in the world. And you'd sit there simultaneously thinking, I really should be making my meeting at 1:30, whilst also finding yourself transfixed by every single glorious word she speaks, strangely hooked to her spectacular story of
the fantastic time an escalator was installed into Alders. Now, Paul, Alders followed Owen. It's now become Primark, I think. I asked my eldest daughter about this the other day, and she remembered the occasion vividly. It was quite a day out for the family. We spent that afternoon in the city centre. There were a number of us in town that evening, and to cut a long story short, the company that were installing, well, they sort of shoved us out of the way here, there, da. Safety, mind that child, mind your backs, health and safety, and the rest. But then again, we could stand at the top of the Burgess where the buses used to come in. Years and years ago, some of you must remember that. And we viewed what was taking place. It was a real occasion for us all. Now, we've been there for a good 2, 3, maybe 4 hours. A crowd gathered, and the crowd became bigger, and bigger and bigger, and these are all, lovely people, Coventrians, viewing what was taking place. And to cut a long story short, these men were installing this escalator through the first, maybe second floor of Alders. I think it must have been Alders, of course, with this big crane, this huge, humongous lump of rotten steel. I know how the crowds of Coventry enjoyed sharing at this wonderful spectacle. Now, to cut a long story short, we stood there for many, many hours, enjoying, chatting. Some went in and managed to get a drink at whatever the name the pub was at the time, just can't remember. Some got chips. And then someone else got more chips. And then chicken and chips. How we enjoyed it. It was an absolutely wonderful experience I will always remember. Everyone there enjoying each other's company, meeting up with people they'd never met before, coming together for this event like no event they had ever seen before. The extraordinary escalator being installed into Alders and the celebration of that escalator on the Burgess around it.
so sorry to interrupt, Lynette.
After this,
it's just
yes,
we've got a
I
show to
understand. I
get on
understand.
with.
I understand the show.
got
Oh,
it.
sure. We've got to get on with the show. I'm Lynette Coulston. I was born in Guyana, but I can talk for England.
Lynette Coulston, everyone. As an artiste professionnel, I do know a thing or two about spotlights. Spotlight on, spotlight off. It's all very complex indeed, Andrea. Coventry often finds its spotlight on a soft, dim glow. Often feels like we are waiting in the wings, like we aren't getting the attention that this diva deserves. Right now, however, I would like to take this opportunity to arrogantly, boldly, defiantly shout from the rooftops, we're all right, aren't we?
Coventry to me is a familiar feeling.
It is home.
It is comfort. Not too big for you to get lost in, but not too small for you to get bored in.
Coventry is where I forged my career.
It's where I made my family.
It's where I gave birth to my children.
I have so much I want to say about Coventry.
Sadly, Lynette, we just haven't the time, Bab.
In my youth, I remember fondly going swimming with me mates in Coventry baths, and then on to Fishy Moors for a bag of chips. Just chips, mind, not chicken and chips.
I remember swimming lessons at Coventry baths where I had to swim in my pajamas in case I was ever caught in a flood mid-nap. Global warming, y'all.
I remember arriving here from Malaysia and finding the smell of coriander comforting when I walked down Roze Road.
The wall outside the Tesco's in Cowden that me and my friend would sit on for hours after school just chatting rubbish.
Going into town on the bus with me mum, traipsing around Owen, and then getting the reward of a cheeseburger in the round wimpy. Happy birthday, Mum.
Picnics in the Memorial Park, playing on the equipment down Papenham Green, building forts and role-playing down by Canley Brook.
My first visit to Highfield Road, the noise of the crowd, the smell of the stadium.
Pope John Paul's visit to Coventry in 1982. People of all faiths lining the streets. Didn't matter if you were Catholic, Jewish, Muslim, spiritualist or heathen. No matter what you were, we all came together to join in that unifying moment in this city.
I remember our FA Cup victory in 1987. The citywide outpouring of joy, even if up until that point you hadn't given two hoots about football.
Gathering with my friends and family at the Muslim Resource Center to just spend time together.
A classic night out starting at the Silver Sword.
Or McGuigan's.
Heading across the road to the Alhambra.
Or Rainbows.
Big Parrot.
Knocking one back at the Penny Black or the 3 Tons.
Or sticking to the floor in the Irish Centre 2000.
Height at the Campbell.
Dancing the night away at Tamango's.
Or at Fatty Arbuckle's 999 Emergency Services Night.
somehow always ending up at the collie.
You mean the TikTok?
No. It's always the collie.
And eventually finishing off at the Parson's Nose chip shop for the all-in-one. That's faggots, peas and chips.
What did you just call me? Coventry is a place that, for the 8 of us, has a real love in our hearts. It is by no means perfect. It's a complex place. This cathedral, for example, is a place of hope and peace, but it has its sharp edges. It has an anger. It has a brutality to it and a construction laced with the painful regret of what came before. And somehow, in spite of all that anger, its message of peace, of resilience, of love bursts through. That's what Cov is to me.
My eldest child was 13 when we moved here. She's now 66. As for my 17 grandchildren and 12 great-grandchildren, we're all good friends because I make them laugh all the while, no matter what. I will always speak for Coventry because Coventry has been good for my children and for me. They have done exceedingly well. I spent 30 happy years as a single parent, providing for all our needs on a teacher's measly salary. But oh, how we scrimped and scraped. I could write an entire book about my children and me.
I'm a mother of 6. In my heart and my mind, my children are the Super 6. They are special in their own unique ways, but it's only when they come together like the Avengers, the Super 6 shine. City is like a saffron crocus. She's a delight to your sight, promising warmth even in winter months. Alian is like the rambling pink roses. She brings joy in abundance. My eldest son, Heidi, is the apple tree at the center of the garden, whilst my second son, Adam, is the grape tree, who works best when left alone. My youngest son, Faiz, is evergreen and loyal like the pine tree, and our thief, jasmine flower, a little bit stubborn, but also very resilient. People ask me how I've managed to nurture 6 children when one child is a headache to most parents. To me, the main headache was to bring the eldest. If you get that one right, the rest follow the example of that beautiful saffron crocus.
I've never given birth to a child, let alone 6. But we do have a dog called Reggie. I've always lived in Coventry. I've been here for 41 years because it's where my parents, my grandparents, my siblings, my nephews, my nieces live. Most of them anyway. And this is my biological family. I've also built a new family around me. The Jedi Council, original members, Chris, Paul, Colette, Dee, Rachel and myself. We're a small group of queer couples who came together to create a supportive space in which we could all flourish. This is my logical family, not related by blood, but by shared experiences. The most significant addition to my logical family is my husband, Gary. An addition made on a rather drunken night out at Rainbows many years ago. 5 years later to the day, we were engaged. 6 years later to the day, we were married. With our first dance being to Halo by Beyonce. As an experiment into whether or not we would have made good parents, we adopted our little mongrel, Reggie. Reggie's the light of our lives. We've loved, nurtured and cared for him for 11 years. And Gary and I have found out that actually we probably would have made quite good parents.
I don't have any children or dogs, so I can't really relate. I do have parents, though.
Always interesting, Roze.
I know. I was actually born in Iran, but I moved here when I was 2. I should say I didn't move here alone. I was 2. The only immediate family I have in Coventry is my mum and my dad, who I call Mama and Baba. Baba likes to think he wears the trousers in that relationship, and we all nod along. But secretly, Mum is what I call the dad whisperer. Baba is frugal. He's not too keen on luxuries, which is why when he's at work, Mum buys pretty little bits and bobs for the house. This one time, she took my dad away for the evening and instructed me and our family friends to dismantle the old coffee table and set up the one she secretly brought in its place. Baba leaves the house with one coffee table and unknowingly comes home to find a brand new one. Within the space of a year, the woman had redecorated the whole living room. Next job on Mum's agenda? The kitchen. Watch out, Dad.
I first met my husband Mark on a night out in the Slug and Letters in Stratford. Not the Slug and Letters over there that the kids know today. On our first meeting, to be honest, I found him to be incredibly irritating. He was really drunk and he was slurring his words. He was kind of obnoxious. The second time I met him, however, he was sober. And I found that actually there was a lot more to him than I'd first thought. A northerner, originally from Bury, he turned out to be warm, kind and very funny. We now have 2 children, Eleanor and Harry, and we'll be celebrating 30 years of marriage later this year.
I also met my wife Sue at a pub,
There's a theme here.
though she wasn't quite as drunk as Sam's partner Mark.
I should just say that we don't officially have consent from Mark to reference him as a drunk with more layers, and that if Mark does wish to make a complaint, he should do so legally to Coventry City of Culture Trust directly.
I met Sue at the Penny Black pub, or it could have been the 3 Tons, or the Silver Sword, or maybe the Alhambra, or the Blue and Black Bat. We went to a lot of pubs in them days. I was never one great for a chat-up line. I first asked her out on the number 4 bus, or it could have been the number 13. I guess it depends which pub we were going to. I slicked back my hair, sauntered over to the seat next to her, and smoothly said, "It's my birthday next week. Fancy a drink?" How could she resist? We've now been married 31 years and have 2 wonderful children, George and Lily. I'm filled with immense pride at how they've turned out. Lily really has got my sense of humour. And George, well, he's just a top lad. As big a Coventry City supporter as I am. And those Saturday afternoons that we spend together at Sky Blue Games, well, they're really special to me. When Lily was born in January 2004, it was quite a difficult time. Complications arose during the delivery, and not that I knew it while it was happening, but the surgeon later revealed that both Sue and Lily were at risk. Indeed, we could have lost Lily. I feel blessed now that both Lily and George, now aged 18 and 24, are in good health.
My family is everything to me. Children truly are precious gifts. As a midwife, I witnessed firsthand the miracle of pregnancy and childbirth. And as a mother, I know firsthand the magic of it too. If you're anything like me, as soon as you get that first positive pregnancy test, your mind jumps ahead and you start making plans. You imagine the perfect pregnancy and the perfect baby. You see their first day at school and their graduation. You see them getting married and having children of their own. Before they've even taken their very first breath, you've dreamt up this incredible existence and the positive impact that they will have on the world around them.
At this point in my life, I don't really have a desire to have children. I much prefer working that cool uncle kind of vibe to my nephew and niece. It's much more fun. Maybe somewhere down the line I might be in some bar somewhere where my incredibly irritating Mr. Right walks in. Or perhaps we'll have 2, 6 or 9 children. And perhaps on a Saturday I'll take my little tribe of Cov kids to the game whilst Mr. Right subtly redecorates the downstairs ensuite behind my back. Or I might just get myself a Reggie and stay happily childless. For now, at least, I am adequately content with the completely average people who already make up my family. Mom, Dad, the rest of you, you're enough.
In 2005, after 5 years of hanging pants outfit on Central 6, may she rest in peace, I took a leap of faith and retrained as a primary school teacher. I started my degree course in early childhood studies at Warwick University. Now, bearing in mind I'd left school after my GCSEs and had no other qualifications, I'm under no illusions whatsoever that the reason I got into that degree course at that university is because I was born with meat and 2 veg.
We wanted to keep it tasteful whilst here in the cathedral.
On my course, I was one of only 3 trainee teachers out of 80 who was born with meat and 2 veg.
Unlike Duncan, I was not born with meat and 2 veg. But that was also a teacher of maths and music. Music is my first love. The way in which my high school teacher, Miss Killingly, solved maths problems on the blackboard. Pardon my political incorrectness, but it was a blackboard. That's what inspired me to be a teacher. I loved school. I loved maths. I loved Miss Killingly. How I admired her. She was so generous and so kind and so wonderful. But it was the way she solved equations that gave me the feeling that I wanted to be a maths teacher also, to solve problems.
In the first school I taught at, I was there for 5 years. I kept my head down, I ticked the boxes, I did what I needed to do, and I did not rock the boat.
At the last school I taught, Shirley, the head teacher, I can mention her name now, she's passed on. Shirley would come into the classroom and say, no, Lynette, do it this way, that way, not this way. You need to do this and that. Yes, Shirley. Thank you, Shirley. I will, no problem, Shirley. But as she left the room, I shut the door, turned to my class and said, now we'll do it our way. I can say that now. I'm retired.
The first school I worked at wouldn't allow me to come out to the families for fear of a negative reaction from the community. And I remember thinking at the time, oh, of course, absolutely, I completely understand. But it also felt like I was back in that supply closet. Since then, I have been lucky enough to find a school and colleagues who have been so supportive of me as an out gay man. And I'd like to take this opportunity to thank that school and those colleagues who have allowed me to be out and proud in the classroom for the last 7 years. But even then, it hasn't been perfect. 2 years ago, when passing on my details to my incoming class, I included my own logical family, my husband Gary and our dog Reggie, which resulted in a child being pulled from my class because their parents didn't want their child being taught that homosexuality is normal. And let's be honest, it's not normal. It's absolutely fabulous. After that initial anger and frustration, I felt a really deep sadness. A sadness because that young child's eyes would never be opened further than their parents would allow. So I used this incident to become more focused and determined to help my children. And yes, while they're in my classroom, they are my children. I've become more determined to help my children realize that they can be whoever they want to be. To teach well, you have to know who you are. To teach children to be the people they want to be, you have to be who you want to be. And you can't do that from inside a supply closet.
For me, I believe you go into teaching because you have a passion, you have a love. It is an innate feeling of wanting to help and wanting to give other children what has or has not been given to you.
Which still leads me to constantly ask myself, Lynette, have I done enough for my children in my classroom?
But Duncan, after years of teaching, I learned that you are just one individual and you can only ever do what you can do. Teachers talk a lot. Teachers talk a lot. Take it from a retired talkative teacher who knows. My quietest and most unassuming daughter has never stopped talking since she started working as a teaching assistant for 10 years. She now works as a qualified teacher to a group of social needs students. And like Duncan, she sees them as her children. Like me, my daughter understands and loves each student for what they're worth and is passionate about challenging the way in which we teach. Teachers, take note. Every child is different after all. I always enjoy the challenge of bringing each child into their own through caring and endeavoring to make them the happiest and most confident version of who they are.
I want my children to leave me at the end of the year knowing that they too can challenge inequality and discrimination. That they too can pioneer love. That they can stand up to talk or actions which are creating division within our society. That they can be the spark of hope that someone else needs to see.
On one of my extravagant £9.99 Ryanair adventures, I visited Bruges in Belgium to get away from the mental, emotional, and physical drain that it takes to create high-quality, high art. Whilst there, I unexpectedly found myself fascinated by this stepped, gabled roof of a residential building. I found myself utterly transfixed by its peculiar architectural structure compared to the bog-standard, boring, V-shaped roofs I was so used to back in Cov. After a few minutes of admiring this spectacular roof, I looked to my left to realize that every single building on that street had a very identical stepped, gabled roof. It turns out that's just kind of how roofs are in Bruges. But because I was not from Bruges, that roof fascinated me. I imagine that the people of Bruges looked at me and thought to themselves, why is that incredibly attractive hunk of a man looking at that utterly boring stepped gable roof? I imagined that they had all walked past that roof and all the other equally spectacular roofs on that street 1,000 times without any source of wonder, because to them, well, they were utterly boring. We get bored easily with our surroundings, with our trajectory in life, with our disappointingly dull V-shaped roofs. It's often hard, though, that no matter how utterly boring we are, in the grand trajectory of the world outside, we are somebody else's stepped gable roof. To somebody else, we are a source of fascination and wonder. Each of the people on stage with me tonight fascinate me in their own particular ways, be it Duncan's passion to make a change, Lynette's extravagantly and joyously long stories, Nor's kindness of spirit, or Roze's ladies and gentlemen, please welcome to the stage the one, the only, utterly boring Roze Navab.
Thanks, Paul. I'm Roze Navab, and I was born in 1999. I'm a Cov kid, through and through, but I was actually born in Iran. I only really have two memories of my life before. One of my nan telling me to come here because I was getting in the way of the TV. I don't know why I remember that. The other, the airport chimneys, after me and my mum just said goodbye to our family, who we would not see for another 10 years. For some reason, I really remember those chimneys. For the first 2 years of my life, I did not see my dad. He was here in Cov, setting up our future, whilst my mum was setting up my present in Iran. And when I was 2, me and my mum made our way to Coventry, and from that point on, I was Roze, the Iranian-born Cov kid. I went to Southfield Primary School, St Mary's and St Benedict's Primary School, then on to Cowden Court Secondary School, and finally finished off at Tyler Wood Secondary School. So I've been to a few schools. I think about how different my life might have been if I still lived in Iran. As a woman, I'd be told what I should wear. I'd be unable to speak freely about the things I'm passionate about. I would tragically not be able to eat bacon and Haribos. I know. But when I think about Iranian Roze, I think she would have been more sociable. I mean, she had grown up surrounded by family and people her own age. In Coventry, it was just me, mum and dad. In Iran, Roze would have had grandparents, cousins, friends, everyone. Here, I've moved from school to school, never quite knowing where to settle, or struggling to find where my place is. I've grown up not knowing how to act, or overthinking what I do in social situations, and sometimes just saying things I don't quite mean. When I was growing up, my dad kept reminding me of all the things I had the potential to achieve because I was growing up here. Let's just say, though, it can get a bit tiresome, Dad. When I was very small, the Persian news was showing a story of a talented female swimmer who wasn't allowed to compete in the Olympics because of Iranian government restrictions. She was forbidden from swimming in next to no clothes in the same pool as men.
Things might have been very different for her had she been trained in pyjama swimming. Just saying.
Well, watching this news story on the telly and seeing this woman being unable to achieve what she wanted to achieve, my dad turns to me and says, "Look, I brought you here so that you could be whatever you want to be, like an Olympic swimmer." To my dad's disappointment, I'm still yet to make my international swimming debut. I haven't really got experience swimming in my gym jams, to be honest, Paul.
Disappointing.
I know, I'm sorry. I have, however, managed to forge out my own dreams, and I've no doubt in my mind I could never have dreamt those dreams without Coventry.
When I returned from Bruges, I set myself the task of trying to look at what was around me with naive eyes, as though I'd never seen them before. I tried to see Coventry's town hall through tourist eyes, Coventry's Swan Street through tourists' eyes, the quite peculiar and incredibly clunky Peeping Tom's clock in Broadgate through tourists' eyes. Through my 27 years as a Cov kid up until that point, I had grown utterly bored of these things because I had seen them 1,000 times before. I had lost any wonder in them because to me they had become utterly boring. Now, to be brutally honest, Roze here is utterly boring. To Roze. But to me, wow. She's got some redeeming features.
Thanks, Paul.
In 2015, I accidentally became the chair of the Sky Blue Trust, a movement with the core aim of increasing supporter involvement in the football club. One of our key ambitions throughout that time was to bring our city's football club back from Northampton, over 30 miles away, to their home here in Coventry.
In 2015, I accidentally became the chair of PRISM LGBTQ+, a free weekly social group whose core aim is to offer support for the young queer community in Coventry.
For the first few years of my life, I was a Liverpool Football Club fan, but I've been a dedicated Coventry City supporter since 1975, age just 9.
Me? Well, I've been a dedicated homosexual since about 1980, age 0.
I grew up with CCFC being a really, really important part of my life.
I grew up with Section 28 denying a really important part of my life.
Through school and onwards, my idols were Tommy Hutchison, Tom English, Gary Thompson, Terry Gibson, Cyril Regis, Dave Bennett, David Speedy, Gordon Strachan, Gary McAllister, Hadji Chippo, Robbie Keane, so many great players. The list goes on.
Through school and onwards, for me there was Boy George. And he was kind of who I am, but not really me. At least now queer visibility is much more prolific. School was not a pleasant experience for me because I had nobody there to teach me how to be the person I wanted to be. I was still stuck in that supply closet. So in 2015, I started volunteering for PRISM. I discovered them at the Coventry Pride Festival and found it was my way of giving back the supports that I hadn't had as a young person.
In the summer of 2012, I went as a fan to a Sky Blue Trust meeting at the Squirrel Pub, just over there in the town. We'd just been relegated to League One, the old third division. There was no investment from the owners. We were selling all of our best players. We were only heading in one direction. It was at that meeting at the Squirrel I was unexpectedly voted onto the board. If fellow Sky Blues fans thought that I had something to offer, then I couldn't really refuse. I initially became secretary, then media spokesman for a while. In that moment, I could see there was a need.
And I could see there were young people like me who needed support.
I wanted to be a fan of my home team in my home city. And it turned out that other people believed in what we wanted.
So, when the movement needed its chair,
there was us. As part of our campaign, I stood on top of a double-decker bus in Broadgate, the very same bus that had brought the FA Cup winning team of '87 home. And I spoke to around 5,000 people. We'd only expected around 200 to turn up, but thousands upon thousands of individuals came to Broadgate to join us in that moment. I saw young people, I saw old people, I saw some even older people. Hello, Rob. I saw grandparents, I saw children, I saw Coventry City supporters. I saw people who just lived in Coventry and recognised that Coventry deserved and needed its own football team. As I made my speech from the top of that bus, it moved me to hear the crowd passionately sing. Okay, so I know you all want to join in this time. So if you don't know the words, where have you been? But don't worry, we've helped you out. The words are on the back of your programme, the back page. And it's a very simple tune, so there's no excuse. And for those that are able to, please feel free to stand. So come on, let's all sing together. Cathedral of Us in this great city, and also for the team that did so well at Southampton today but didn't quite manage it. Let's all sing together for our football team. Thank you. Beautiful work, Cove. And we got there in the end. And I saw some Manchester City supporters singing too, which is always good. Now I can say, without a shadow of any doubt, that we would not have achieved a thing had all those individual people not joined us in that moment in Broadgate, in that protest that followed, in that song, with the shared passion of knowing that it was wrong. It's kind of spectacular, isn't it? What a group of individuals are able to achieve when they just come together. A symphonic achievement. And I don't know for sure, but hopefully we played just a small part in bringing Coventry City Football Club back to Coventry City.
Every Thursday evening, I meet with a gaggle of queer teenagers. It can be up to 30 individuals who come together to create a community. And we also like to sing songs, but it's very rarely play up Sky Blues and much more likely, let's do the time warp again. Prism primarily provides a safe space in which the young members of the local queer community can be themselves and meet others. We take them on marches, parades and protests. We go to museums with queer-focused exhibitions. We watch queer films and theatre productions. We play, we talk, we be. We try to help them recognise that there is a community around them who love them unconditionally. However isolating it might feel in that particular moment, there is a whole new orchestra of individuals just waiting to welcome them in. We want them to know that while their struggles may be individualized, really, we're all struggling together. And most importantly of all, we want them to know there is glitter at the end of the tunnel.
The glitter at the end of the tunnel for me is no longer being a chair and just blending into the arena again as a bog standard, ordinary CCFC fan.
The glitter at the end of the tunnel for me is heading down the yard or Glamorous and seeing a young person who I used to support dancing away to some queer anthem without a care in the world, being the best and happiest happiest version of themselves.
When I was 18, I was walking near the Priory Place in town when I bumped into a friend. He was taking some international students on a tour around the council house and invited me along. And I thought, why not? Got nothing else to do. The secretary to the Lord Mayor at the time, let's call her Janet? Yeah, let's go with Janet. Well, Janet came down to say hello. Towards the end of the tour, she showed us this tapestry on the wall, which captured in cloth the history of Coventry. And right at the end was this square on twin cities. Now, our gal Janet told us that Coventry has the most twin cities in the world. We invented and pioneered the concept. Coming out of the Second World War, we reached out to our enemies and said, listen, we forgive you, let's reconnect. I found myself weirdly inspired by this. But, Janet cried, we've got so many twin cities, but we're struggling to maintain a relationship with all of them. Janet's misery, bless her, made me realise that there's a global platform right here on our doorstep, and no one is utilising it. So at age 18, I sat the Lord Mayor down. Let's call him Pete? Yeah, Pete. So I sat Pete down, and I was like, right, listen here, Pete. You need to get these links going, mate, because this could be a real opportunity for the city. And Pete was like, I don't know. It sounds interesting, but we've got no money, blah, blah, blah. We've got potholes to fill, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, Pete. Fine, don't worry about it. I'll just do it myself then. And that is how I founded Twin Studios Project, where I connect Coventry and its 26 twin cities through music, media, and arts. So far, age 22, I've worked with Dresden, I've worked with Volgograd, Coventry, Connecticut. I've rekindled connections with places like Kingston, Keshkimet, and Cork. I also have aspirations to set up 3 brand new twin cities in countries in South America, Africa, and Middle East, where we currently have none. I hope that I'm doing whatever I can to play my part in building a connection between us and them. I just believe that as people, we are better when we're connected, like Coventry did back in 1944.
Now, Nor,
Yes, Paul.
as you know, my flat overlooks Coventry's finest landmark. That's right, the Coventry Ring Road. As you've visited, you know that my flat has a balcony, on which, over the past year, I have started developing myself a mini botanical garden.
I've seen it. Very impressive.
Thank you, Nor. It houses flowers, fruit, veg, bird feeders, insect houses, and a beautiful beanstalk working up the bars, weaving its way upwards. My mom's started calling me a real Percy thrower, which I must admit at first I thought was a homophobic slur. For those who are too young to know, Percy Thrower was the Charlie Dimmock of his time. And if you're too young to know who Charlie Dimmock is, then,
TikTok?
yes, Nor and I don't really have any more current garden references, but we think it's probably somebody on TikTok. My balcony garden is small. On its own, sadly, it isn't going to solve the global climate crisis, particularly with Coventry's beautiful ring road in the background. But in and of itself, it does go without saying that it is positive. Minusculely, yes, but still positive. Nor and I have a shared passion for our gardens, but hers is much more impressive than mine.
Thanks for that. However, comparing to a balcony to a garden, it's like comparing an orange to an orangutan.
True that.
Paul, when I look at my garden, I wonder whether the bulbs miss each other if they are not visiting the garden at the same time. There may be an overlap of a week or two when the peonies and iris bloom together, but they remain distinctly separate. When relatives visit me from Malaysia and pay a visit in July, they feel like they are those bulbs to me. They rest through the winter months, only communicating through the old phone call or WhatsApp message, then share with me the joy of the physical life presence appearance in July. Although our flowers might not be blooming at exactly at the same place at exactly the same time, we stay connected and continue to help each other to grow. Do you want to continue with your beanstalk, or shall I continue?
You're doing great.
Good. I like to think myself as a community pollinator. When students arrive to the city from Malaysia for education every year, I do what I can to welcome them to the city. I know how difficult it can be for them, being so far away from their home and family, and they are so young. When they arrive, they need a support system around them to feel at home. So the Malaysian Curry Society, which my husband, Abang Fuad, the patron, we have to buy pillows, duvets, and keep them start their own new home, here 10,000 miles away from their families. We invite them over to our home and cook them a warm meal and help them settle down. It's amazing, Paul, what a warm, comforting meal is able to achieve. I absolutely love cooking and I love my garden, like a beanstalk, working its way upwards. I just think it's always good to have something to cling to.
Nor Aziz, yes please.
For about 8 years, I worked as a sister on the special care baby unit, looking after the sickest and most premature babies. It was here that I became aware of the gap in the care that we were providing for families when a baby sadly died on the unit. Whilst the care was excellent when the family were in hospital, it was when the bereaved family went home that I felt that we were really failing them in not supporting them through their grief. They were left alone to make their own funeral arrangements, with many feeling isolated and lost, with little or no support at home. Some parents had spent many weeks and sometimes months on the unit with their sick baby, and they'd come to see us nurses, midwives and doctors as their extended family and support system, a logical family if you like, Duncan. So when they went home, they were unsupported, losing not only a child, but that logical family that had been wrapped around them. Some had families to talk to, but nobody that could truly empathise with their trauma. So with the help of a local charity who was supporting bereaved families at that time, I approached the hospital management team and mooted the idea of having a bereavement support specialist midwife role. The brand new role was created in 1998. I was the first bereavement midwife in Coventry and one of the very first in the country. Sadly, though, to date, there are still some areas of the UK without a bereavement midwife in post. When I first started, I guess I was just making it up as I went along. There was no guidebook, and there was nobody else to ask about what good support looked like. So I just sat with the parents, and I gave them time, and I listened. And I just hoped that was better than nothing. To date, I've supported thousands of bereaved families across Coventry and Warwickshire. I really hope that I've made a difference.
I have given birth to 9 children and experienced the death of 3. 58 years ago, my beautiful 5-month-old baby Anya passed on very suddenly and unexpectedly. My son Anthony had lived with heart complications since birth. He battled through a bypass operation at age 10 years old, an open heart procedure at age of 13, but he lived to age 55, when his overburdened heart finally got the better of him. Throughout his years, though, he worked all his life. Then there was Alistair, who served as part of the Royal Horse Artillery, and then the Special Services. He was discharged on grounds of ill health by the time he was 30, and returned home to his young family with little more than post-traumatic stress disorder. He struggled to be his old self and passed at age 52.
About 30 years ago in Malaysia, I lost a little boy 24 weeks into my pregnancy. There was no support for mothers like me. We didn't have Sam. I had to just get on with it, and all I could do was to stand to my faith and maintain my belief that there was some glitter at the end of the tunnel.
I do not believe in the word loss for anything other than my keys. When it comes to life as a spiritualist, I believe in a transferal of energies. A caterpillar turns into a cocoon, into a beautiful butterfly.
I have since had 6 healthy children, and sometimes when all the super 6 together in my garden or by the beach, I feel as if there are 7 and he's just tagging along behind us.
"30 years ago, a year before I was born, my mom miscarried a child 13 weeks into her pregnancy. In the year of my birth, 1991, Mom also lost her brother, who was aged 26. His name was Anthony. I didn't know till Duncan told me that in the Catholic Church, St. Anthony is the patron saint of lost things.
I, for one, am always asking my son Anthony to help me find my lost keys. We turn to faith to help us try to make sense of it all.
We try to work out what part this plays in the big plan.
Through life, I felt a strange connection to my Anthony. My relatives often say, "Oh, you look just like Anthony," or "Isn't he the spit of Anthony?" My mom says, "Anthony started balding about the same age as you." I've lived with Anthony all of my life. Although he is no longer here with us, although I never physically met him, he is and always will be an important part of who Paul Anthony James O'Donnell is. I couldn't forget him even if I wanted to. I don't.
You might believe in saints, or heaven and hell, or another afterlife, or perhaps that people just perish and cease to exist. Now that I'm retired from teaching, I work as a spiritualist minister. I believe in a transmission of energies. Even in death, our energies shift. To explain my beliefs to children, I start by asking them whether they think a caterpillar recognizes a butterfly, or whether they think a butterfly remembers that it used to be a caterpillar, gross flesh like ourselves. I'd like to think that we're all just waiting for our energy to change into a beautiful butterfly, when eventually, finally, we cease to be this glorious caterpillar that you see before you. For me, faith and loss go hand in hand, be it faith in oneself, in others, or in an external entity or energy. I've experienced them all on occasions.
My faith rebalances my self-esteem. Faith holds me to the ground and helps me to see, taking notice of what is around. It's there to hold me when I feel alone and while I feel down. It reminds me that I'm not the planner and to be grateful for everything I have. It sows in me the seeds to believe that I'm part of a bigger plan and to stick to the guidance offered in the Quran.
Through time, we find some way to rebuild ourselves. We find some way to push forward whilst never letting go or forgetting what came before. And as is human nature, we often find some way to use our pain for positivity. I've always been inspired by the courage and the strength of the families that I support. Despite going through the most painful experiences of their lives, many parents want to find ways to support others through their loss by fundraising or forming charities of their own to make a difference for other families experiencing a bereavement. They're trying to make something positive out of the life that didn't have the opportunity to flourish. Whilst I've attended many training courses over the years, it's the families who I've learned the most from. Their experiences are individual and unique, as are their reactions and their emotions. I've learned where there is sadness, there is often hope and great strength, and that listening and acknowledging the pain really helps with healing, and that healing takes time and it can't be hurried. People often say to me, "I couldn't do your job." But I don't see it as a job. I see it as a great privilege.
No patient, no parent should ever have to experience the passing of their own children. Speaking from experience, I believe that all we can ever do is try to find some way to move forward and use that experience to create glitter at the end of the tunnel for somebody else. In my own small way, I have set out to find ways to support families of people suffering with PTSD. The services in place tend to buy someone with post-traumatic stress disorder something like a new fridge and hope that that solves everything. But there are those families around that individual with their shiny new fridge struggling to see their loved one reclaim the vibrant person they once were. I try to let the families of those facing PTSD know that I am always here to listen. It might not be much in the grand scheme of things. It might feel insignificant. But for families who just need someone to talk to, someone to listen and give direction, I try my best to say, "I'm here."
Lynette here can talk for England, but she can listen for England too.
A baby born after a miscarriage, stillbirth, or neonatal death is known as a rainbow baby. Like a rainbow after a storm, they are something beautiful. So, Paul, You are Bernie and Chris's rainbow baby.
Not only that, I'm also a homosexual. I am Bernie and Chris's double rainbow baby. You know me, Sam, I do hate to boast. A rainbow is a multicolored arc made by light striking water droplets. A beautiful phenomenon caused when sunshine meets rain. Sun is gorgeous when it happens, but I feel rain has some bad PR. Yes, it does frequently mess up my luscious locks. Yes, it is an absolute bugger when I've left my brolly at home, but like Roze, it does have some redeeming features. The universe seems to cover up what is essential, important, and needed in a shroud of, oh, for Pete's sake. No offense to any Petes in the audience. Sometimes, just sometimes, it takes dark storm clouds to help us truly value the sunshine.
For years, the Jedi Council had been my strongest support network. And then it started to fall apart. First one couple separated, and then another. And then we received a phone call saying that our friend Paul had been found dead at home. The shock was palpable and left us all reeling. So that afternoon we came together over food to support each other. Despite the circumstances, it was one of my favourite meals because we were together. Years later, we received another phone call telling us that our friend Dee had died. And once again, we were left reeling from the loss and the unexpected nature of it. Our grief was collective. Our small community has been through so much together, and although we don't always find the time to collectively be in the same room, we have been there for each other. Despite the loss we have experienced along the way, we are still one Jedi Council, united against the Death Star. Fractures are painful, but, as Sam said, with the right care and support, they can heal.
I am terrible at maintaining communication with friends. The hustle and bustle of everyday life often gets in the way, and I think I have responded to their WhatsApps, but it turns out I just did so in my head. I hope, however, my friends know that if ever they are in need of someone to talk to, if ever they feel like they want support through a difficult moment, if ever they want to share the turmoil of not being invited to Number 10's garden party as well, I will be there for them. No matter what highly stressful high art I am creating at that particular moment in time, I will be there. Dear friends, allow your beanstalk to cling to me. Not in a sexual way, Andrea. We are trying our best to keep it tasteful whilst here in the cathedral. This cathedral where 60 years ago in our tragedy, we were faced with an opportunity to rebuild the shell you see behind me, to build up its walls to create a mere mimic of what was there before, to pretend that the previous 22 years had never happened. We decided against that. We decided instead that we would keep that memory living, that we would never forget the moments that shaped who we are, but from it independently grow a new hope. The next piece of music we would like to dedicate to all of the people of Coventry who are no longer here with us.
find strength from my garden and learn a lot about the world from it. I learn from the lavender and the rose who love each other passionately. I learn from the energy and synergy in how they help each other to reach their potential. I learn from the poppy's resilience to survive. You can remove the leaves and the stems, but as long as you leave the seed, each year the plant will continue to grow. I learn about community from the Malaysian Curry Leaves, growing in pots in my conservatory. About 5 years ago, a friend gave me one as a gift. And from one tiny plant, I now have 3. At first, I put them in separate corners of the conservatory. They look lonely. Their branches bore very few leaves. They lived, but they were not living. Until I tried something different and brought them to the same corner of the conservatory. I don't really know the scientific reason for it, but as soon as I put them next to each other, they began to really thrive. The leaves became greener, and the stem started branching out. There is something about them being together that has helped all of them to thrive. For some reason, they find strength in each other. In a garden, we think plants are a singular thing. There's a hydrangea there, a Japanese camellia there, and poppies over there. But what that individual poppy does not realize is that it's part of a much bigger garden. Without the poppy, the worker bees couldn't bring back its pollen to the hive. Without the worker bees bringing back pollen to the hive, the queen bee dies, the colony perishes. I'm not sure the poppy realizes quite how important it is to the garden around it. I also don't think the rest of the garden realizes how important that individual poppy is. And as for my Malaysian curry leaves, well, I don't think they realize that my curries would be utterly boring without them.
The word symphony translates to coming together. The coming together of sounds, the coming together of flavors, the coming together of us. The orchestra in front of you is made up of strings, woodwinds, brass, percussion, a conductor, and the people section. Each and every one of us is, at this moment, tied to the exact same score. Each of us doing our own separate thing, but it's only when we come together that we offer up the full spectacle. And even if not everyone is joined in this particular moment, in their heads they are still counting, still going through their lines, still waiting for that moment where they do something once more. See, in this world of soloists, this world that is constantly trying to keep us 2 meters apart, it is very easy to feel isolated. It's easy to feel like we are playing our little violins all by our little selves, like we are soloists in our concertos for one. But Dave, dear Dave, all I can say to you and your little violin is that you're never quite as isolated as you might feel. Dave, 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 Dave. Please take comfort knowing that you are part of a much bigger orchestra. Take comfort knowing that
My brother is a Coventry City supporter.
and
I have 2 sisters in Australia. One of them is in a loving relationship with a woman. The other is a midwife.
that
I've tried my best to make Coventry just a little bit better, a little more connected.
That I've tried my best to fill a need.
That I'm trying my best to offer the support that I needed before.
That Anthony connects Paul and me.
That Andrea and I hung pants together at Outfit on Central 6.
That I was not born here.
Or me,
Or me.
Or me, but my kids were.
that Roze went to sixth form with my daughter, our Tiff.
and
I probably looked after Moz's child, Lily, when she was in the neonatal intensive care unit after her birth.
that
I believe in Allah.
I believe in a transmission of energies.
And I believe in life after love. After love. After love.
that over to you, Moz.
That I love my children, my grandchildren and my great-grandchildren.
And I love my wife and my children.
And I love my husband and my children.
And I love mine.
And I love both my biological and logical families. And of course, Reggie.
And I love what my mum has planned for the kitchen. Dad,
That no matter where we happened to be born, for right now, we love and embraced in this love. To all the other people sat in the cathedral around you, there are 1,001 harmonious connections, big and small, that bring you together. I must apologize. Apologize because sadly I am unable to afford an orchestra to celebrate every contribution you might have made to the individual sat beside you.
Remember, Paul, that you are just one individual and you can only do what you can do.
Thanks, Lynette. As individuals, we are all part of a personal, national, or universal us. And within that, we often think we are utterly boring. Personally, I think we are all just soloists in a much bigger symphony. When I was in Collinge, standing in front of that orchestra, although it felt like it was for me, I was in fact not alone. I was in a crowd of people, all there in that particular moment to come together, to be a part of that place right there and then, of that moment right there and then. For now, at least, we are all here, in these relationships, in this cathedral, in this country, in this world, in this beautifully complex city we call Cov.
I myself am proud to be a Cov kid who was born in Iran.
I was born in Malaysia, but 3 of my 6 children born here.
Remember, I'm from Guyana in South America, but I can talk for England and Coventry.
And I am 100% Cov and 100% Donegal. People move, people change, people have biological and logical families and Reggies. All of us are imperfectly, perfectly flawed.
And boring.
You got it, Roze. No matter where or who a person happens to be, no matter how minuscule, we are all contributing in some small way. We are trying to make a positive impact on whoever surrounds us at that particular moment in time. I believe that just like our bassoonist, Phil, hi Phil, we are all doing our best to make our individual, insignificant, utterly boring contributions to this grand symphony that we call us. And as we say in the traditional concerto de musica classica, hit it. Coventry Cathedral, please put your hands together one last time for the one, the only, Aziz. Yes, please. Moz Baker, he ain't no faker. Duncan Brightside, take a walk on the wild side. Collinge, eating an orange. Lynette Coulston, which is very hard to rhyme with. Roze Navab is all right, Bab. Who's impartial to a ukulele. Our city hosts who like toast, toast, toast. The cathedral staff who are up for a laugh. Our access producers who are here to seduce us. The team of production, book them for your function. They're very, very good. The creative team, sweeter than ice cream. Our triple threats, Daniel Fardon, Orchestra of the Swan, catch them before they're gone, gone, gone. And I'm just